They like to praise us for our strength, for our courage, our resilience, but people don't always like to talk about the cost that our bodies have to pay because of our strength, courage, resilience. Welcome back. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And we're also going to talk about how people mention generational curses, generational trauma, but I feel like we don't talk enough about is generational wisdom. And that's what my hope is, generational healing. That's what my hope is, to start to shift the conversation into. And we start sitting with that, talking more about it. So again, welcome back. And I was just kind of sitting with a spot in terms of my youngest child is actually in the process of writing a book. And the book that she's writing is she's using family history stuff and incorporating it into a fictional story. And so I was like, well, this is good. When kids are doing things, I'm trying to encourage them, try to uplift them and keep them moving forward. And I just told her, I said, you have a unique opportunity. Your great grandmother, my grandmother, is no longer living. However, her sister still is. Her sister just celebrated 100 years this year, in March, actually. And so it's a huge opportunity to be able to talk to somebody who's been around 100 years ago. Excuse me, I see my dog and he's trying to get into my bag right now. And I don't know what's in my bag. So let me my bag real quick. A little bit further out his way. Sorry, real life over here. So so she, with school and everything, she had a lot going on, and so she wasn't able to do that. But a couple days ago, this past week, she actually was able to make that phone call and to speak to my great aunt Evelyn, which is her great great. And so that was such a cool opportunity for her to be able to talk to somebody that old, and she's asking lots of questions and things from like what were things like when you were a little girl? What did you do? What did your like great grandmother do? And when I think about it, like she's actually her great great aunt. So so she's asking all the questions and things and writing down. And then we recently went to a museum in New Orleans, and so we got to see these pictures of um, three Black people and watching them just shine and move in society. And so it was a nice time where all of that was kind of coming together. And I couldn't help but think about my great aunt and some of the things that I remember her saying growing up, my grandmother, some of the things that I remember her saying growing up, some of the herbs that they used, the different foods that they ate, how they prepared things. And we like to think a lot about what was passed down to us. That's just like a bunch of foolishness that essentially we need to clean up. When I'm sitting down and I'm talking to clients, whether if it's couples or individuals, one of the things I like to describe it is it's almost kind of like a garden or it's your backyard. And so when we take a look at what's in our backyard, a lot of times there's stuff that's in our backyard we didn't ask for, we didn't choose, but like when we were born, this is what we just automatically inherited it. And so when we are sitting with that stuff that's in our backyard, or we're sitting with the stuff that's in our garden, sometimes there's a lot of foolishness that's there. There is health problems, there's dying early, there's broken relationships. Goodness, there's all kinds of things that are left in our yards. And so when we come into the world as a baby, automatically inherit this stuff. And so a lot of times we like to talk about all the foolishness that we inherit. We don't always like to make space for those things that are beautiful and lovely that we inherit. The other thing that I think is important to take a look at when we're looking at our backyard is sometimes there are things in our yard that we were told is trash, we were told was foolishness, and that we should just discard. So for myself growing up, one of the things that I was taught is dandelions. Oh my goodness, dandelions, they're so awful for your yard. You pick and pull those things out, throw those things away. We don't want them anywhere in our yard. As a little girl, I used to love dandelions. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Still love them, okay? So, but that kind of got socialized with me because I was raised that these are weeds, these are unwanted, get them out your yard. And I was something bright and beautiful and fun. And the socialization kind of taught me something a little bit different. I'll never forget when I was actually an adult and I was sitting at this fancy restaurant, one of the very first fancy restaurants that I ever was able to go to and pay for my own meal. Big deal, y'all. And at the restaurant, I'm seeing this big, expensive, pretty salad, and I'm not one to order a salad at a restaurant. I'm like, I can do that at home. I want something different when I go to a restaurant. That's just me. So I saw this salad. It was one of those like multi-course meals, super fancy. I don't even remember where it was. But I remember seeing this leaf, and I was like, something about this leaf looks different. What is with this? And I kept looking at it and I tasted it. I'm like, it's kind of bitter. What is this? And then all of a sudden it dawned, they were dandelion greens. Oh, that blew my mind. You mean to tell me I'm at this nice restaurant paying all of this money to eat a weed on my plate? It was a time where I had to start shifting how I thought about things. I had to start going back to some things inside of me that I was like, you know what? I've always loved dandelions. Never tried them before. The greens specifically. I've always loved this flower. And so it gave me some permission to redefine and to reclaim dandelions for myself. Why am I bringing this up? As I'm talking about generational wisdom, generational trauma, generational growth, I brought this up to say this, that there are sometimes, there's things that we get socialized out of. We're so quick, especially in our society, to say that essentially Black people, we don't have much of anything. That, we're told we get the short end of the stick, which we do. We're told that, we're not going to amount to much of nothing, which it's really hard for us. We got to be so much more excellent than anybody and everybody else to be seen as halfway, just a smidge of usefulness. So to all of a sudden be in a spot where we're not talking about breaking cycles and generational curses and all these things. We're starting to take a look at, like, wait a second, there are some good things that my ancestors passed down to me as well. They didn't just pass down the struggle. They didn't just pass down being strong or courageous or resilient. All these words that a lot of times they get annoying. They just get annoying. And so many of my trauma clients were like, Virginia, I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to hear that I'm resilient. I am breaking. I need a break. I want to hear that. And I get it. I get it because I have my moments sometimes as well. I'm saying all that to say this, that we don't always take time to listen to the stories about our growth, listen to the stories about our successes. Successes. Woo, let me get a little quick drink there. Thank you. We don't always take time to look at our successes, those things that have been passed down. And when I say successes, I don't mean a bunch of titles. I don't mean cars. I don't mean neighborhoods, status symbols. What I mean is some of those things that my great aunt was passing down to my daughter. She's talking about how being, how prayer was important, how being rooted and grounded in your character is important. Even if you've made mistakes, even if you've messed up, even if you've fallen short, even if you've not always met the societal standard, even if you've not always met your standard, that we can take the time, we can sing songs of encouragement, we can pray, we can also take time to connect with all of those who are around us, those who are cheering us on, those who are still living, and those that have passed on. That their prayers and their good wishes for us are still here. And so I know that that was really encouraging for my daughter to be able to listen to some very, very simple truths, things that she hears me say, things that she hears other books in our family say. But sometimes it just doesn't land quite as meaningfully. It's coming from a 100-year-old woman. And so, how does this apply to you? How can you take a look at your backyard and not just look at all the piles of bushes or your garden, whatever illustration works best for you? Taking a look at all the piles of bushes that was left behind, was passed down, you don't want, don't care for, thought it was trash. Or maybe you were socialized into thinking it was trash, but it actually ended up being very meaningful. Take an inventory. One of the ways that's the easiest to take an inventory that is, I will be honest with you, very scary to do. The very first time I did it was in graduate school. It's something that's called a genogram. And I'll never forget, I was taking a family systems class. And they were like, oh, we're going to do our genogram. We're going to see, our family histories and learn how to do this. And I was like, what? And so what I did was you could start from your grandparents, or you can start from your great grandparents. Then I started with my great grandparents because I actually didn't get a chance to know on my mom's side, my great grandmother. Super fortunate. I get a generational blessing, longevity, being able to be around them long enough, excuse me, to see multiple generations and to be able to share your wisdom and to share the simple things that is keeping you going and keeping you healthy and strong, not getting to 100 being ill, getting to 100 being full of life and love and having wisdom to pass on to those who, if they didn't have you, didn't have you the way to know what lessons were. So I did my junior career, and I'll be really honest with you, should you choose to do it, I highly recommend having a little bit of support around you. When I did it, I thought it was just gonna be almost like being a family tree. I've done my family tree so many times. In middle school, I've done it. I also did it again in high school. So in graduate school, I'm thinking this is no big deal. I'm just gonna do this thing. And as I started looking at my family tree, I started taking a look at relationships, taking a look at marriages. After you look at my great grandmother and you take a look at all of the other marriages, I'll just share with all of you. Obviously he heard something. Nobody hears. Bro, his job is to keep you safe. So appreciate him. Thank you. So I didn't have like a lot of relationships in my family history where folks stayed together. Or if they did stay together, they had healthy relationships. Then I started looking at illnesses. I started looking at high blood pressure and diabetes. All the way down, all the way to allergy. Then I started taking a look at systemic stress. Anybody who was negatively impacted by systemic stress, systemic racism, systemic poverty. Then I started looking at the parts of my genogram where I didn't have any information. Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. It was really sad to see those question marks. Then I also I had an opportunity to take a look at just jotting a little synopsis of each of the people. Who were they? What were they known for? What did they pass down? Farm worker, sassy. Okay. Sassy, sassy, sassy. Silent. I also started to take a look at generational strength, works in the community, advocate, started a food pantry, worked in the church, supported youth who were considered urban youth that didn't have a high chance of success. I also took a look at creativity. So playing the piano, singer, soloist, lots and lots and lots of beautiful, beautiful music, all throughout my junior grade. So this became an opportunity for me to reflect on some of those things I was able to grit. It also became an opportunity for me to read some of the pieces that machine marks, some of the pieces that's missing, some of the parts of me that I don't have access to. Which a lot of that is because there's so much systemic poverty that those stories, there's so much systemic oppression, and the old folks, they just decided they weren't going to talk about it. They weren't going to talk about it. Y'all, our history here in America is not always the brightest and the funniest. At some point, we get to some generation that is more silent. There's things they didn't talk about. I mean, I get that. I honor that for them. That was the best decision of any and they can do. So definitely no shame at these folks. We did not walk in their shoes. We don't know what they have to do. We don't know how they have to survive. We don't know their story. So definitely no shame on them. The piece that I feel like is important here is understanding that, yes. And I think even that tells a story. Tells us that things are so bad, they felt like they had to be silent. That was their best move to protect the next generation. And so I asked that you get a buddy, somebody that you can share with, somebody that you can explore with. Sit down and write out your genogram. Maybe you have hints like me want your kids to know this is where you come from. These are the things that we're working on as people. Financial insecurity, like there's so many things, right? Having children early, there's so many things that we're noticing that passed down from generation to generation that are affecting us today. And so sometimes we underestimate the gifts and the wisdom that those before us had. And so it has taken me into my adulthood and into having kids to start respecting and having more connection and care for things like Negro spirituals that have helped my family get through all kinds of things generationally. That you know me, I am not a singer. I am not a singer at all. But I can take some time and I can swear and I can listen. And I can come and then the secret places in my own heart I can see. I'm putting in the Bible. And I can take time to connect those things that gave strength to me. So what am I challenging you to do? I'm challenging you to write your genogram, at least half of it. Take a caregiver either side, jot down your genogram. What were those things that you were born with that are good? What were those things that were not so good? You don't really care for too. It's hard to see. Have a study buddy. Have somebody that you can sit down with and you can share that information. If possible. This next step is really hard. But having a conversation where somebody that's older than you or somebody from that person's generation, ask them what was the world like? How did they make it to how did they make it to one? How did they make it to one? What are the things that they regret? What are the things that they wish that they would change? What was the weird simple things? When you talk to folks back there that are of an age like that, yeah, their wisdom is always so simple. They'd rather challenge you there. Is to let your heart have ears, receive that from powerless abilities. Find out where is that showing up in your life already. And how you get a little bit more intentional about it. That is the secret, y'all, for intergenerational wisdom. Intergenerational. You have to know where we come from to be able to know what we're doing. My name is Virginia. I'm a licensed mental health therapist, and I'm so glad that you spent this time with me today. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I do ask that you take that time to do that. Thank you so much. That helps my family and that helps me. And I ask that you would take good care of yourself today and take care of others in your life.